Have you ever asked yourself the question, what if I went all in? In fact, there's this famous story of this commander named Hernan Cortes who arrived on the shores of Mexico with a fleet of around 800 men in 1519. And he had one goal in mind, which was to conquer the Aztec Empire. And to ensure that he fulfilled this goal, when he arrived, he asked for one radical commitment from his men, which was to burn all of the boats, leaving no option of return. Either we conquer the Aztec Empire or we perish trying. So why did he do something like this? Well, for every one of Cortes' soldiers, there was around 1,000 Aztecs, and the population at the time was around 5 to 6 million, and he knew that he was severely outnumbered, and the only way for his soldiers to ensure victory was to sever the ties to retreat entirely. And I think the main commonality with this story and our own lives is the importance of burning the boats whenever we have decided to embark on a new path or made a big decision. Imagine if I gave you a bow and arrow, and you loaded the arrow in the bow and you had a target right in front of you. And as you wielded back your arm to load up the shot and you're about to fire, you just look off to the left at the very last minute. And surprise, surprise, the arrow misses the target by a mile. And you wonder, why is it that I missed? Well, it's because you weren't looking at the target. Had you have only just changed your focus to the target in front of you, instead of getting distracted by the bird to the left or whatever was hazing your point of view, you would have hit the target. The thing is when your attention is scattered, you can't focus. In fact, Steve Jobs had this one saying, which was, focus is about saying no. Not to the things that you don't want to do, but to the things that you really want to do, to the easy things that you could do. It's about burning all the paths to your left and to your right so you can focus right on the one in front of you. I remember when I booked a one-way ticket to Thailand and everything was lined up. I had just enough time to basically make my business work so that I could go out to Thailand to have an amazing time. And the date of the flight, it kept getting closer and closer, and surprisingly, things just took longer than I thought. Everything wasn't quite working. I wasn't financially where I wanted to be before I went. And I remember just before I went, around 2 weeks before I went, I had £2 in my bank account, and I had no idea what I was going to do. In fact, the last thing I wanted to do was go to Thailand. But this wasn't the first time I booked a flight to Thailand. I had booked a flight a couple months earlier, and I knew that if I cancelled this flight again, I would have just kept putting it off. Even though it wasn't perfect, even though it was probably a terrible situation to be in, I knew that I committed to the path and that there was no other option. And luckily, I managed to generate just enough revenue before I went so that I could sustain myself over there. And I'm really not suggesting that you do what I did, but I am imploring you to commit to the decision, to commit to the path that you are on. The problem with having a plan B is if you ever utilize it, what happens is you have this short-term gratification, you have this short-term relief of escaping the uncomfortable situation that you were in on plan A. And I think this is another reason why Cortes decided to burn the boats, because he knew that if he kept the boats there and for whatever reason they decided to retreat all the way back to Spain, even though him and his soldiers would have had this short-term relief, the fact that they're not fighting anymore, he knew that in the long term it would haunt away at them, knowing that they went out on a mission to conquer the Aztec Empire, but they failed. When you have a plan B, it takes up mental real estate in your mind. It takes up space and energy, and that time could be used instead for plan A. Now you might be thinking, and we've all been there, okay, but if I go all in on plan A, if I put all my eggs into this basket, what happens if it doesn't work out? What happens if it fails? Well, usually when it doesn't work out, it's not as bad as it seems. And I don't know about you, but every time something that I thought was going to be the main thing for me, that I thought was going to be the right path, when I went down it fully, when I decided to commit myself fully to it and it didn't quite work out, if anything, it just led me on to the next path. You ought to think as well that there's many different paths to the same destination, and sometimes you go down this one path and you hit a roadblock, but then you learn that that is not the path that's going to get you there, and then you just take a slight detour. But you're not going all the way backwards, because you've got this newfound experience which you can apply to the next endeavor. There's this famous invention called the light bulb, which was created by Thomas Edison, and it took him around 1,000 tries. But imagine if on the 5th or the 6th or the 7th try, he told himself, you know what, I'm just going to try this other thing instead. But no, he said, I'm going to create this thing no matter how long it takes, no matter how many tries that it takes. And I think he actually said that every single failure, taught him something which he could take to the next experiment, which eventually, after 1,000 times, led to the light bulb. Or perhaps I've got it wrong entirely. Perhaps you are on plan A and you've burned the boats, there's no plan B, and you are fully committed to the mission in front of you. If you are in that place, all I'd say is to just hold the line. With the bamboo tree, the farmer has to water the plant every single day for 4 to 5 years, and then within 5 to 6 weeks it magically shoots up to 80 to 90 feet. But if he had missed one single day out of those 4 to 5 years, or even a week or a month, then it may have never amounted to that height, which is all to illustrate just how sometimes, even if you cannot see the immediate return on the path that you're on, to just keep going anyway, because eventually, in due time, as long as you don't give up, it will work. Anyways, that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed this one, you might enjoy this one as well. Other than that, thank you for watching, stay tuned, and see you on the next one.